Hello, everybody. All right. Welcome to a special late edition of the Mikestand. Sorry that it is late tonight, but I actually had some phone issues I had to deal with earlier. That's why we're kind of getting started later than I usually tend to most of the time. Um, but of course, a friendly reminder to everybody, both on Rumble and on YouTube, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. I'm going to give it a few minutes, give people a chance to come in before we get started. Um, you know, anyways, huh. I'm not crazy, I'm just a little unwell, I know. Alright, hopefully that helps a little bit there with the view count. Alright, so as I said, we're just waiting on some more people to show up. So, anyways, let's see. Okay, past 2 minutes, so a little bit longer, then I'll go over what's on tap for tonight. Hopefully, everybody had a good weekend. Hopefully, everybody, again, to kick back, relax before getting back to work this week. I do know that the NFL season started. Not that we really follow sports as much here, but anyways, okay, now we're at 2:45, so we're almost. All right, so. All right. Well, with all that being said, now we're at 2:50. So, okay. So here's what's on tap for tonight. I'm going to be going over an article from Bleeding Full, another Avi article. Talking about the top comic sales of 2020, a more discerning look at 2025's top selling comics. So we're going to go over that article. Of course, as always, we'll do the rest of the wrap up, look back over the weekend's activities, look back to Friday Night SmackDown. As coming back from, of course, the French show, as well as Clash in Paris, well as looking ahead to and looking back at Collision as well, looking ahead to tonight's Monday Night Raw, and then of course we'll wrap things up with this day in each history. All right, so with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get ready to get started here? So let me just go ahead and pull up the article here. All right, so with that, let's see now, and I may try to fish for another article if we get, depending on how fast we get through this one. Again, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, I check things here, check for comments before we get started here. And to my Rumble viewers as well, if you guys, again, feel free, if you can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. That being said, let's go ahead and get going here. All right, so a more discerning look at 2025's top-selling comics. Article by Avi Green, published September 6th, which was this past Saturday. So Avi works Saturdays. All right. Comic Book Invest looked at what were allegedly the highest selling issues of the past summer months. And the examples they give, in addition to being no surprise, are also delivered without sales figures. For instance, this is from the article I guess he's quoting. The highest selling comic book sold in shops and printed by the end of April was Absolute Batman number 10. It shouldn't be a shock, as this series has been on fire since release. Take the fact that issue 1 has been reprinted about 9 times as an example. Okay, so now here's Avi's response to what we just read. But how many were even, quote unquote, reprinted, a term that might be better suited for trade paperbacks? That aside, it's sad either way that once again the darkness appears to sell more than the light. Though one can reasonably argue it's because the assigned writers for Superman haven't been suited to scripting the Man of Steel for a long time. Yet there are 1 or 2 examples of titles that were brighter back in the day on the list. There's the Fantastic Four. Now back to the article he's referencing here. As I run through and check things again, see if there's any comments or anything like that to look at. All right. A new number 1 for the family that launched Marvel into the Silver Age was bound to sell well. But the release of a highly anticipated movie alongside this new series helped place it as the second highest selling issue in stores last month. So this is Avi's response to what we just read there. Considering the movie hasn't lived up to financial expectations, how can we be sure this new volume is selling any better? Note how they suggest or sugarcoat the pointless tactic of relaunching at numero uno as a temporary boost for sales numbers, even though it's long proven increasingly unsuccessful. Also on the list is Absolute Superman, going back to the article he's referencing. Another comic that presumably saw more success due to the release of a new film in presence of the title or character, but like Bats, Absolute Soups has been selling well since issue 1 hit the shelves. And here's Avi's response to that. And if it didn't sell over 1 million copies, then what's all the fuss about? That aside, it's sad how something built upon PC is what's being promoted so heavily. For all we know, its quote-unquote success is surely exaggerated even then. Much like the new movies. Then there's Batman 161. Going back to the article. Next to do well at the local comic shops is an issue that is part of the Hush 2 story, a sequel years in the making. This run has seen some delays recently and has had mixed reviews overall, but it hasn't stopped it from being one of the top 5 selling comic books of the summer. So, and this is Avi's response to what we just read. A sequel to that overrated Jeff Loeb penned story of the early 2000s, Pass. Most interesting suggestions are given that this might have suffered from delays, not unlike at least a few Marvel titles during Joe Quesada's um, first few years as executive in charge. What that can prove is that, given the chance, DC can be just as awful with their scheduling and how they employ creators. And one more on the list is Godzilla destroys the Marvel Universe, quote unquote. And this is going back to the article that Avi's referencing. I wasn't expecting to see this book so high on the list, as there are about 100 Godzilla titles currently on the racks. But adding in the Marvel superheroes must have been enough for even casual kaiju fans to pick it up. Looks like a fun read. And finishing up here, Avi finishing up here, when they title it with the word destroy, quote unquote, something's terribly wrong and has been for a long time. And without sales figures, this is as unconvincing as the rest. If their modern flagship universe has some of the worst writing in comicdom today, then it stands to reason even these licensed merchandise adaptations will be no different. And no chance these new money makers or money wasters will be worth much in the foreseeable future on the market either. Not to mention that monetary investment is not a substitute for artistic value. All right, so there we go with that. That was the only article I had planned for tonight, but again, we can go ahead and at least go through. Let me see here. All right, so now we got some more people coming in. So with that, anyways, now I'm gonna go ahead and try to take a look and see there's some more articles to run through. And I invite both my Rumble and my YouTube viewers, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if can't get a few more people to friendly people to engage. If anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. And just in case you're wondering, I was a little late tonight because I had some phone issues. Actually, I had to go get a new phone. My phone was finally kind of going kaput. So, with that being said, let me go look to see if there's some more articles we can probably read. Other sites here. Might have just popped up. All right, let me just. Oh, okay. Here's an interesting story that just came up. I guess today. I looked at some of these side. All right. He did some. So, Beast Boy voice actor claims he was fired by WB after Parkinson's diagnosis. Now, last time I knew, this Beast Boy was being voiced by Greg Sykes, I believe. So I wonder if that's who they're talking about, or if this is somebody different. But I guess we'll find out. Beast Boy voice actor claims he was fired by WB after Parkinson's disease. Article published today, September 8th, 2025, which of course is today, by Marvin Montanero. So let's see what's going. Let's go see what's going on here. The long-running voice of Beast Boy, Greg Sykes. So he's still doing it after all these years. Like he's been doing Beast Boy's voice for like 20 years now, because I think it was back in the mid to late 2000s that he started doing it. Has come forward with a serious allegation against Warner Brothers. According to Sykes, he was fired from his role as Beast Boy the day after he publicly shared his Parkinson's diagnosis, ending over 2 decades of work with DC's animated projects. Sykes' statement has ignited backlash online, with fans rallying under hashtags like hashtag Save Beast Boy, while industry insiders point to creative differences rather than discrimination. Regardless, the situation shines a harsh spotlight on Warner Brothers at the time when the studio can scarcely afford new controversies. Greg Sykes speaks out. Greg Sykes first voiced Beast Boy in Teen Titans back in 2000. So yeah, 22 years. Okay. And continued the role in Teen Titans Go, Young Justice, and numerous crossover projects. To generations of DC fans, his upbeat, playful performance was inseparable from the character. Earlier this year, Sykes revealed that he had been diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's disease. He now claims that Warner Brothers terminated him almost immediately afterward. Well, that would be I mean, if they were looking for a reason to fire him and stuff like that, yeah, that probably wasn't the best timing. Because we just read also that some people were saying that was there were some creative differences there. But anyways, so quote, Warner Brothers literally fired me on Valentine's Day right after I publicly shared my Parkinson's diagnosis, unquote. Sykes wrote in a social media post. He described the experience as feeling like, quote, a death, unquote, and alleged that executives wanted to replace him with a mimic who could copy his voice for Teen Titans Go's next season. Supporters close to Sykes, alleged that the rest of the cast opposed the decision, telling executives the show would not be the same without him. So that would have been like Scott Menville, Kari Payton, Tara Strong, and I can't remember the last one's name. Hendon Walsh. Fans have since rallied online, accusing Warner Brothers of discrimination and demanding his reinstatement. Warner Brothers counters with a different story. While Sykes frames his firing as retaliation for disclosing his illness, sources connected to Warner Brothers tell a different story. According to Deadline, via The Wrap, insiders insist the move was not about Parkinson's at all. Instead, they claim Beast Boy was being recast due to, quote, creative and performance considerations, unquote. The report suggests that 1. Sykes has already recorded lines for a different character in the same series. Warner Brothers, the other next bullet point, Warner Brothers discussed a possible development deal with him for future projects. Another bullet point, the studio did not remove other longtime cast members and has no official policy excluding actors with health conditions. Now, I can understand a little bit because Parkinson's is a degenerative disorder. If maybe they were taking a preemptive approach here, but this is not necessarily what you do. Okay, maybe in their eyes, maybe because he has Parkinson's, they know eventually he's going to, he's not going to be able to do it. They just figure they might cut their losses now, but in other words, the studio frames this not as a firing in the punitive sense, but as a creative shift. Let's see if anybody's saying anything. Nope. Anybody on Rumble saying anything? Nope. All right, as we continue on then. Let's see what time it is here. All right, so a question of timing. Even if Warner Brothers insists the decision was unrelated to his health, the timing raises question, which is true. I mean, the dude just announces that they may have been planning this for some time. Maybe they should have done it earlier or maybe a little later, but they decided to do it now on the heels of his announcement. Sykes says he was fired as Beast Boy one day after publicly disclosing his Parkinson's diagnosis. Executives have been also accused of pushing to recast his role with a sound-alike rather than rewriting Beast Boy or allowing Sykes to continue. But why did they want to rewrite Beast Boy though? That right there is a question that I guess for fans it looks like discrimination, whether or not that was the intent. Employment law in the U.S. does prohibit firing someone solely due to a medical condition, and Parkinson's qualifies as a protected disability. If Sykes pursues legal action, Warner Brothers could face a very public fight over workplace protections in Hollywood. Well, okay, if they were planning on going in a different creative direction, what was the different creative direction? I guess that's a key thing to ask too there. Why this matters for DC animation. The situation arrives at a delicate moment for Warner Brothers Discovery. DC's live action projects under James Gunn and Peter Safran are already under intense scrutiny, with some fans skeptical about the direction of the rebooted universe. Losing a beloved animated staple like Greg Sykes only adds to the perception of instability. Teen Titans Go remains one of Cartoon Network's most recognizable titles, and Beast Boy is central to the show's dynamic. Recasting him risks alienating longtime fans, especially when the reason appears tainted by allegations of discrimination. Yeah, and if he's been for the longest time the comic relief of the show, granted, it's been more of a kid-friendly show, more of a comedic aspect, but fan backlash and industry optics. On social media, anger is building. Many see the situation as a blatant betrayal of an actor who gave 20 years of service to Warner Brothers. The fan-led push to restore sites has been strong, with thousands of posts spreading the hashtag Save Beast Boy campaign. Some even appealed directly to DC Studios head James Gunn, arguing that if DC's Elseworlds projects can experiment with casting, then loyalty to iconic voices should matter in animation. The optics for Warner Brothers are already poor. Whether or not the firing was tied to Parkinson's, the perception of dumping an actor after a health disclosure is disastrous for public relations. Because of the obvious implications. Right? Hey, Metal. So, yeah. It's illegal to fire someone for that, thanks to the American Disabilities Act. It'd have to be a mutual termination if the cause was his health. They probably have another reason. Well, okay, I don't know how much of the article you heard me read, Metal, but they were saying it was for creative and performance differences. Let me go back up and read that part again for you. Let me see. Okay, so this is what this was Warner Brothers counter to this was Warner Brothers counter to this to Site's statement. So while Site frames his firing as retaliation for disclosing his illness, sources connected to Warner Brothers tell a different story. According to Deadline, in parentheses via the Wrap, insiders insist the move was not about Parkinson's at all. Instead, they claim Beast Boy was being recast due to, in quotes here, creative and performance considerations. Now, the performance considerations, I would imagine if that was their way of trying to say it and hopefully get around the whole firing him because of his. Maybe they were worried that because Parkinson's is a degenerative disorder, eventually he would not be able to fulfill the role. And maybe they were getting ahead of the curve there, but that's not but as I said, that's not necessarily the way to go about it. But and the report suggests Seitz has already recorded lines for a different character in the same series. Warner Brothers discussed a possible development deal with him for future projects. The studio did not remove other longtime cast members and has no official policy excluding actors with health conditions. In other words, the studio frames this not as a firing in the punitive sense, but as a creative shift. And I kind of wonder what that creative shift is, because there's basically still, even though there probably are a lot of adults who watch this show, particularly Teen Titans Go, it still seems to be a show that's targeted towards kids. So why would you feel the need to do a creative shift like that? That'd be the big question. That'd be the big question I would have for him. Let's see. I typed that way before you got to that part. Well, it's not. I actually had to go back up because I thought maybe you typed it after I'd actually got the part I just read about Warner Brothers. I had read that earlier because that was earlier in the article, but basically on that though, some people have, as I've been reading throughout the article, people are saying it is kind of sketchy the way it came down. Oh, I caught the entire article. Okay. All right. Well, it's good to know. But okay, so with that said, let's get to the closing thoughts here from this article here. Closing thoughts. At the heart of this story is one painful reality. Greg Sipes helped define Beast Boy for an entire generation of DC fans, and he was fired shortly after disclosing a terrible illness. His voice is the character. If the Beast Boy actor was indeed fired the day after sharing his Parkinson's diagnosis, Warner Brothers faces accusations of callousness that will not fade easily. Yeah, as has been pointed out throughout the article, this is just going to be a public relations nightmare. Even if the studio's explanation of quote unquote creative differences is true, it's hard to argue that the timing wasn't catastrophic. When fans hear quote Beast Boy fired unquote, they don't think about creative shifts. They think about an actor punished for getting sick. Warner Brothers has not issued an official statement. Until it does, the backlash will continue to grow. DC Animation risks alienating one of its most loyal fan bases. For now, Beast Boy's future is uncertain, but Greg Sipes has already made his mark. Fans aren't likely to let the studio forget it. And then a little opinion piece there. All right, so let's see where we're at on time. And Metal, I don't know if you caught what I said earlier, but the reason I started late tonight was because I had some phone. I had to go actually and buy a new phone because there were some issues with my old phone, so switched over to T-Mobile, as it were. So, anyways, let's see, what time is it now? 32 minutes. I'm going to look to see if maybe if there's another article we can probably go through here. We actually did read that one the other day. And let me see about MeTV Tims. That one is the same as. Right. Let's see. All right, yeah. So I don't think there's any new articles. So, anyways, Metal, if you're still here, is there anything you want to ask about or talk about? I guess for you, I mean, you got to probably start getting ready for your show coming up here in a bit here. All right, so if anybody's got anything maybe they want to ask or talk about, we can do that for a few minutes. If not, then I guess I will start to start wrapping things up. I'll start to do the rest of the wrap up next. If you guys, unless there's something that maybe you guys want to talk about, mention, or what have you. Let's see, anything new there? It goes for my Rumble viewers too. If you guys have anything you want to talk about or anything like that, feel free to chime in. I think I'm going to step away from the computer for a moment, take care of a couple of things real quick, and then I will be right back. But what I will do is I'll put some music on, entertain you guys while I'm gone. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So I just had to check a couple things. So yeah, I think now would be a good time to probably move on to the wrestling wrap up. Look back to, of course, Friday Night SmackDown and AEW Collision, and then look ahead to tonight's Monday Night Raw. As of course WWE is building up towards WrestlePalooza. Big thing happened on Friday Night SmackDown. Um, Now, the show started off with, of course, John Cena coming out and do a bit of a promo before being joined by Sami Zayn um, in order to basically in honor of John Cena do the old United States Open Challenge that Cena used to do when he was the U.S. champion before, and gave John Cena the first shot at such a case. Match ended up in a no contest when Brock Lesnar came out to attack John Cena. Then the second match saw Aleister Black defeat Damian Priest in just over 9.5 minutes, using the referee as a bit of a distraction and hitting the Black Mass spinning back round kick onto Priest. It was a pretty interesting spot in the match in which Priest hit basically the Razor's Edge, or his version of the Razor's Edge, onto the announce table onto Black. The main event saw Julia successfully retain the WWE Women's United States title over Michin with help from Kiana James. And also, what happened at the very end of the show was there was another confrontation between Becky Lynch and a little promo battle between Becky Lynch and CM Punk, talking about how she punked Punk, by slapping him around on Monday night and all that, and Punk trying to be, the being the gentleman here, was not going to strike a woman. And he all talked about, I do have some friends that I could call on to slap you around. I don't need to do it. I don't need to cross that line. Talked about like how maybe you'll call Rhea Ripley to come out to do it, or Bailey, or what have you. And then, of course, in what is considered one of the least kept secrets in the pro wrestling business right now, we saw the return after 10 plus years of AJ Lee to the WWE, which she went after Becky Lynch, started beating up on her, setting up for a mixed tag match coming up at WrestlePalooza on September 20th, in which it'll be WWE World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins teaming with his wife, WWE Intercontinental Champion, or Women's Intercontinental Champion Becky Lynch, to take on CM Punk and his wife, AJ Lee. So the one that they called AJ Lee, the one they said that she was the girl who made Crazy cool. So now with that, we'll move on, of course, to looking back at what happened as the WWE is preparing for its WrestlePalooza event in Indianapolis. Coming up on September 20th, Saturday, September 20th. There was a counter. This event was scheduled to basically counter what AEW was already doing, as they had their All Out pay-per-view coming up in Toronto on that same weekend. By the way, the SmackDown, of course, had come from the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois, with Michael Cole and Corey Graves on commentary on USA Network. So now moving on to AEW Collision, All Elite Wrestling, coming from the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's, of course, the old ECW arena, with Matt Menard, Nigel McGuinness, and Tony Schiavone on commentary on TNT. Opening match saw Jon Moxley defeat Daniel Garcia in a singles match to open up the show. Marina Shafir in Moxley's corner, and Moxley would later challenge Darby Allin to a coffin match coming up at All Out. FTR, Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler with Stokely in their corner in preparation for their upcoming tag match against Christian Cage and Adam Copeland coming up at All Out. Took on the team of Tommy Billington, the nephew of the late great Dynamite Kid, and Adam Priest. Then in an 8-woman tag team match, AEW World Champion Tony Storm teamed with Harley Cameron, Chris Statlander, and Ring of Honor interim World Women's Television Champion Mina Shirakawa to defeat Megan Bayne and the Triangle of Madness of Julia Hart, Sky Blue, and Tekla. Now, after the match, Tony Storm called 3 other women as after the match, the Triangle of Madness and Megan Bayne were trying to beat down Tony Storm and Mina Shirakawa and a few others there, only for Jamie Hayter to come out looking for Tekla. This led to Tony Storm challenging Tekla, Jamie Hayter, and Chris Statlander to a 4-way match at All Out for the AEW Women's World Title. So with some of the matches that are already signed, and in the main event saw Konosuke Takeshita defeat Mark Briscoe with the help of MJF, Maxwell Jacob Freeman. He got married this past weekend to his longtime girlfriend, Alicia Tout, and then basically came back early from his honeymoon just so he could screw over Mark Briscoe. This, of course, would lead to him challenging Briscoe to a match anytime, anywhere, any stipulation. He didn't care. So, pretty upset that Briscoe helped cost him the AEW World Title. So, but Briscoe had a right to screw him out of the title because of what he did, threatening to burn Briscoe if Paige didn't give MJF a title shot without him having to give up his gauntlet contract. Anyways, so now we're caught up on all that happened over the weekend here, kind of light compared to the last few weeks here. So now, looking ahead, of course, to tonight's Monday Night Raw. Tonight's Monday Night Raw. Let's find the information here. Again, as they continue to try to build up for WrestlePalooza coming up on the 20th. Coming from the Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with Corey Graves and Joe Testatore on commentary. Now, apparently, Wade Barrett will be off for, I guess, a couple weeks or so. There's a time that he had asked for off. Now, some people thought that maybe this had something to do with his recent dust-up with Nikki Bella, but both of them have confirmed that issue has been squashed. But, so Corey Graves, of course, is filling in for, Corey Graves is now going to be on Raw and SmackDown for the time being. So the matches that are signed for tonight's Monday Night Raw include AJ Styles taking on El Grande Americano, Raquel Rodriguez of the Judgment Day with Roxanne Perez in her corner taking on Lyra Valkyria, Penta is set to take on Rusev, Asuka set to take on Nikki Bella, and of course the main event we'll see LA Knight taking on Bronson Reed. So that's all we got for the wrestling wrap up. Let me see here. I do need to go off camera here for a quick moment, so I'll be right back here, but I'll put some music on while I'm gone. I have to just step away from the computer for a moment. All right, I'm back. So now that we're all through the wrestling wrap up, so now with today being Monday, September the 8th, 2025. Let's get ready to take a look back at this day in Neat history. History! So 1950, 2020. 2020. All right. All right. So first off, we're going to go back 75 years. As on this date, 75 years ago today, back in 1950. Back in 1950. Let's see. The first issue of Young Eagle from Fawcett Publications Incorporated went on sale on this date back in 1950. It was a bi-monthly book, sold for 10 cents. Roy Ald was the editor. Of course, you had 3 Young Eagle features and an Old Smoky feature among those. So I'm guessing this is kind of a Wild West Western kind of comic. So The Massacre at Needle Pass, The Talking Mule, The Vanishing Herds, and Fairy Creek were the name of the stories. So on this date, 75 years ago today, the first issue of Young Eagle went on sale from Fawcett Publications on this date back in 1950. So moving on then to the year 2020. So going all the way up 70 years. On this date in the year 2020, 5 years ago today, on this date 5 years ago today, Finn Balor defeated Adam Cole to win the vacant NXT championship. This is, of course, when both of them were still in the WWE's NXT brand. Of course, Finn Balor is on the main roster now as part of the Judgment Day faction. Adam Cole has since moved on to AEW. So on this date 5 years ago today, Finn Balor defeated Adam Cole to become the new NXT champion. Now, 2020 is just so nice that we're going to hit it twice. It's also on this date in the year 2020. In the year 2020. Also on this date in the year 2020, 5 years ago today. Premiering, of course, on Peacock, I believe. Universal Animation Studios, Curious George Go West Go Wild. Premiered on Peacock, I believe, back on this date, back in 2020. So 5 years ago today, Universal Animation's Curious George Go West Go Wild premiered on Peacock on this date 5 years ago today. Now, 2020 is just not just so. It's really nice because we not only are going to hit it twice, but we're going to hit it thrice. We're going to hit it thrice. So, also on this date in the year 2020, 5 years ago today, over in Japan, the Toei Animations Fushigi Dagashiya Zenitendo premiered on Japanese television on NHK Educational TV on this date back in 2020. So back in 2020, 5 years ago today, over in Japan, Toei Animations Fushigi Dagashiya Zenitendo premiered on NHK Educational TV on this date back in 2020. All right, so with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. We'll be back here, of course, with more YouTube. And I will be back to 5 o'clock tomorrow. I just, as I said, kind of had a bit of an emergency pop up with my phone. Had to go grab a new one, so had to go take care of that. But with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Okay, actually, wait a second. Before I go, one more thing I should. So this Sunday, we'll be continuing our look. We'll be continuing our trek down Comics History Lane back in June 1940. This week, we'll be focusing in on books that went on sale from Novelty Press. My co-host for this Sunday will be R.J. Carter from Critical Blast. So with that, I thank everybody for being here. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. I know it's a little late tonight. I will be back at 5 o'clock tomorrow. Hope you all have a nice evening. And for those of you, don't forget to go check out the Vomitorium over on the Metals channel. He's coming up. I think he might even already be started. So go give him a check out there. He talks, on tonight's show, on the Monday show, he talks about a lot of the same stuff I do. So you guys might want to go check that out. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.